Good evening, everybody. I believe we are live. I think we are. If we are live, guys, give me a shout. Let me know. This is the first time I'm using this medium, so I'll need you guys to let me know if we are live or not. Also, if you can hear me, let me know. Yep, I got Glenn here. Lovely. Hi, Glenn. Welcome. Good evening. So, guys, as usual, as you jump on, just let me know that you're in the building. Also, let us know where you're from, where you're listening from, what country or what part of the UK. If you are in the UK, let me know so we can say all our highs and I can welcome you guys in as well. Do some shout outs. We are on today. Gonna go on probably a little bit over the 9 o'clock today because I have a guest for you guys in today as well. So yeah, we got a lot to go through. Yeah. So welcome, guys. As I said, put your names on the screen. Let us see who you are and where you're from. So we've got Glenn. Glenn is a regular. Welcome, Glenn, from Southend-on-Sea. What's the weather like down there, Glenn? It's nice and sunny. I'm sure you guys are having a nice time down that end. Really hot at the moment, so I'm loving it. We got Dee here as well. Welcome, Dee. Dee says you can hear me as well. Don't forget to let me know where you're from. Also, please like the stream, guys. If you are on, please like the stream so that more people can get alerted of the videos as well. So we have R. Williams as well, 0161. Big up, Darren. Welcome, R. Williams, 0161. Where is that? 016, is that Manchester? Is it? Let me know. I'm not too good with that, but I know it's somewhere up north. We got Saeed as well. Hi, Saeed. Welcome. Saeed. We got Jamie in here as well. Jamie, hi, Jamie from Kent. Welcome, Jamie. We got a close one, Mohammed, South Croydon. Good to see you, bro. Thank you. We got Dominican in the house here. We got Ricky as well. Sakafet Ricky. Welcome. Let me know where you're from. You're from Dominica? From St. Lucia? Probably from Dominica. We got Alex as well from Manchester. Welcome, Alex. Yeah, it's hot. I'm sure it is. Today was really hot. We were working outside today. I didn't film today. Sorry, guys. No video today. Today was hot. We struggled. We were in the hot sun. And we were digging. Amongst other things, we're doing a soak away for the 7x4 garden house. So we were digging on that. And I was just really busy. I just didn't really get to film today. So I'll try and film the next time I go there to show us completing the digging and actually installing the soak away. But I didn't actually get time to get a video in today. Evo, welcome. Evening to you. We got David from Ireland. Sorry, my bad. David from Ireland. Welcome, David. Not seen me brethren Namdi for a while. Hope you and the team are all blessed. Yeah, Namdi's good. I spoke to Namdi day before. I think he's doing some work on a project. He should be back. He told me he'd be back in about 2 weeks' time. Yeah, so hopefully he's done with what he's doing. We need him back, to be honest. But yeah, he said he's coming back very, very soon. Once he just gets this job finished, he'll be back with us. We've got where are we next? Nick Drury. Hi, Darren. Your health and safety nightmare from Leicester. Welcome, Nick. It's all good, man. It's all good. Thank you for joining in. So Ricky's from St. Lucia. Big up St. Lucia in the building. We got R. Williams, Manchester. Amazing. That's the 0161. Yeah, I think that's what I said. We got Dave as well. Dave Richardson as well. Another regular from Barnsley. Welcome, Dave. Who else we got here? Ricky's from Kent. We have 60 seconds of Stevens. Love the garden houses. Watching from Corfu. Amazing. Welcome from Corfu. We've got Gigi here evening, another regular. We also got Edith as well from sunny Espana, another regular. Thank you. Welcome. Jas, welcome, Jas. Good evening to you from Wolverhampton. We got Belay Visuals from Kensal Rise. Big up the Kensal Rise crew. That's sort of my oldish areas that I grew up. Where's your relaxing drink? White rum. No white rum today. That was last week. I had to wind down a little bit, but yeah, nothing. I just had a cup of tea just a minute ago, and that's it for tonight. Evening, Leo, as well. Leo Bartlett, welcome to the stream. So, guys, just a quick little update. So we got a guest today, and she's an architect. So we are going to be talking about architecture. We're going to be talking about planning. She's going to be answering some questions that I have for her. And also, if you guys have questions on your own stuff, planning and stuff, tonight is the night to ask. And she's going to do her best to give you some information. Okay. Also, another quick update is some of you might have seen the short that I posted today on YouTube. We had the inspector come in for the steels. I wasn't expecting him to come in today, but I got a text yesterday afternoon saying that he could come in this morning. So I said, yep, that'll be good. So he came in this morning. He's very happy with the work. He's happy with the steels. All the steels have passed. I did speak to him about some ideas I had with the steels, about how I was going to box them and stuff. And I really like the idea of exposing some of the steels. I hadn't spoken to the client yet, but I wanted to speak to him first to see what he had to say about it. So he was quite happy with us, painting the steels with fireproof paint. This particularly one of the steels I'd like to expose. So I actually spoke to the client today who's on holiday. Funny enough, he actually called me today, and I told him the steels passed, and I told him what my ideas were, and he's quite keen on it. So I sent him some pictures with the ideas that I have for him to decide what he wants to go for. Also, I did a poll as well on the YouTube page as well. So if you check on the community tab, there's a poll. I'm going to see what the results of the poll are so far. I posted 3 images, and basically I've asked, so if you guys get a chance, please join into the poll. We got 164 votes already. So my questions are, should we box all the steels? That's the first thing, which is what we were originally intending to do. Second, should we box some and expose the lower one, which is the problem one for me? I think we could make that one a feature and just leave that one and paint it. Or should we expose all of the steels and leave all the steels? There's like 4 steels, and expose everything. So far we've got boxing all the steels 26%, box some and expose the lower one 56%, and expose all of the steels 18%. So nobody's really keen on exposing all the steels. The one that I would probably go for is what most people are going for at 56%, is to expose just the lower one and box the rest. So it looks like that might be what we do. So that's what I'm going to suggest to the client to go for. We'll see what he says. I think that's going to look really, really good. So yeah, so I'm going to bring her on in a second. So as I said, yeah, guys, bring your questions in, and we will try and answer those questions. So Saeed's got some questions already about extensions. Let's see what else we've got. We've got Stop FC, STCP FC. Welcome. The Good Life Off Grid Living. Good to see you too. Welcome. So someone's up to saying about the paint. Whenever you have done intumescent paint, it's just kind of gloopy looking. Wonder if it can be done in a nice way. Yeah, I think it can be. I've seen it done in a nice way. Depends on how you apply it, Some people paint better than others. It is sort of a quite a thick paint, so you can make it look good. So I'm sure we will do that. Let's see. Exposed steels doesn't look good on an older property, therefore on a modern flat or warehouse. That's a sad. Yendor says flush. Mikey saying, hi Darren, Mikey from Borehamwood, enjoying your videos. Will email you about my fire damaged house. Yes, yeah, I know you mentioned that before. Definitely send that to me. Let me see what you've got in mind and see what we can do. So Rodney's saying flush is best. All right, cool. So let's get into it. So I'm going to bring her on now, and we're going to get into it.
Hello.
Good evening, Paris.
Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
How are you doing? How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good.
You good? Good. Welcome. So, guys, this is Paris Renee. She's an architect. I'm gonna let her tell you about herself, to be honest, because I'm gonna get it all wrong. So I'm gonna leave it for you.
Okay. Well, a little bit about me. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Darren, for having me on your channel, and hello to everybody who might need a little bit of help. So I am an architect. I have been qualified for about 3 years now. I studied for a very long time. We won't go into how long, but a little bit longer than probably most architects study for. I have a background in historic buildings, so I worked a little bit on like listed buildings, and I currently work in interior architecture, working kind of more in the hospitality side of things, but I do have a lot of experience with residential homes. I do also sometimes do planning applications and things for friends and family, as you do. And yeah, just kind of here, happy to help with all of your queries and talking about, why do people need an architect, for example, because I think a lot of people may not know.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, definitely. I mean, we get so many questions here about planning, and to be honest, most of the time I don't know the answer to it, which is why I asked you to come on.
Sure.
Because it's sort of goes hand in hand with what I do. It's the first step, isn't it? Planning permission, or whether people need planning permission. We do a lot of garden houses on the permitted developments and stuff like that as well. So sometimes people don't even need, but they don't know where to go or where to start. We have issues where we have, for instance, some of the projects, like we've got a project going on right now, which is where we're recovering a house from sort of like a cowboy builder sort of job. And a lot of the problems that they are in is because they didn't know procedures or what they should have done. And when people don't know these things, it tends to get them into sort of issues and stuff. So yeah, so this Tuesday sort of videos that I do is sort of educational, to sort of share knowledge for people to learn about different things that they want to do. So I answer a lot of questions. There's going to be questions that are going to be posted that are not going to be related to planning. But what I'm going to do is I might answer some of them in between, guys. So if you be a little bit patient with me, or I might sort of reserve them for a little bit later after we've focused on what we're discussing with Paris. I hope that makes sense. Yeah. So totally. I've got a couple of questions that I want to ask you, just sort of general questions, and then we're going to answer some of the questions that have been posted in the comment section. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question I have is what exactly is planning permission? Like what is it?
Why do people need planning permission? So essentially, there's like a national framework that the entire country has, and it's just about the built environment, keeping our homes and all of our infrastructure and our general building, just keeping it all in regulation, in line, because you don't want someone building a massive skyscraper next to your tiny little house and blocking out all of your light, for example. So obviously there's lots of zoning, there's classes, so you could have like retail, industrial, residential, and there's all these different rules essentially. And then that's broken down into local planning authorities and local areas. And that's who you guys probably have most interactions with. So it would be your local council. Sometimes you might have a conservation area. And generally, that means kind of more specific restrictions about what you can and cannot build in your area. Generally, there's a thing called permitted development. So most people who own their own home will have their rights to extend or enlarge their home. And you have a certain thing called permitted development rights. So that will allow you to extend it by a certain amount. So it used to be 3 meters if you had a terraced house, and 6 meters if you had a detached house. And then they extended that for a short while. So you could do 4 meters if you had a terrace house, and 8 meters if you had a detached house, but you had to do something called prior approval. And I think a lot of people got tripped up when that happened, because a lot of people didn't really know that, yes, you had permitted development rights, but then you had to go through this other process, which was called prior approval. So I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that they're two slightly different things. And although your permitted development rights are still protected and you still have that right, you do need to kind of go through this little bit of an extra process just to maybe extend your house or do some of your extension that you want. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what planning permission is. It's a regulation. It allows you to change, develop, extend, enlarge, enrich the area that you live in, but within reason.
Okay. All right. There's a couple of questions I think that's going to come off from that.
Yeah.
What I want to ask, a lot of people when sort of looking, a lot of people always say to me, like, go and see somebody, a client, they wanted to build something, and I talk about planning, and it's like a lot of people are sort of afraid. I don't know if there's sort of a fear of rejection a lot of the time. So people are just like, oh, do I really need to do this, or can I do it another way, or whatever? But obviously there are people, you are applying for approval, so there's the possibility of being rejected of approval. Yeah. Generally speaking, what happens, let's say if you put in a plan for, say, a rear extension and it comes back as rejected? I know there's a appeals sort of procedure as well, but generally speaking, what typically would happen if say you had designed something for someone and it got rejected for any reason and it came back to you? What would be the next step you would do or advise the client?
There's quite a few steps you could do before it even gets rejected. So the first thing I'd say, from the very beginning, when you're deciding that you want to extend your home, find that local planning policy, and usually it has a thing called supplementary planning guidance. So that is like an additional document that goes alongside the local plan, and it kind of gives you specific guidance on extending your home in that borough. So each borough might have slightly different rules or regulations, and they'll tweak this. And as I said, this is slightly different to permit development. So you always have your permitted development rights, and you shouldn't ever get rejected if you're applying for a certificate of lawful development, which is the certification that you've kind of done things within your permitted development rights. So this is if you're looking at a full householder planning permission. And this is if you want to do something that is outside of that. If you don't want to do a 3-meter extension, you want to do a 5-meter extension, let's say, on your home, you have to then go for a full householder planning permission. So in order to kind of make that leap and say, okay, well, actually, I don't want to extend my house only 3 meters, I want to do this extra step. First, I think you should, look at your property, look at the context, look at the people around you. What have they done? Why do you want to extend more? Why do you want to enlarge it outside of your permitted development rights? And once you've kind of looked at that and decided that, you can go through something called a pre-application. And pre-applications are always really good to do because they'll give you a chance to talk to the local planning authority. They'll give you a chance to kind of get an idea of what they will and what they won't accept beyond your permitted development rights. And so that's already a first step that you can take that will stop you from kind of getting this rejection at the end. If you begin the process really early into your thinking, you can kind of stop yourself from having to go through the stress of having to appeal this process. Then also, if you're going through the actual full householder planning permission process and you kind of get to the point where, actually, the planners are really going against this, they haven't given us good feedback, you can actually withdraw your application. So you don't have to go through all the way, so long as it's before the end of your kind of 8 weeks. Usually it takes about 8 weeks for planning to be decided. You can actually withdraw that application. And I think as long as you submit it, different boroughs will have different time frames, but usually it's about a year or 6 months or something. As long as you resubmit it under the similar kind of planning, then you can actually just resubmit it for free. You don't have to pay that payment again, because essentially they'll see it as a similar application. So you can take it away, tweak it with your designer, and then you can go back in. So that's also another way where before you even got to the stage of rejection, you can kind of go through the process and refine it and work with the planners to kind of get what you want. And then if you do get to the point where they have rejected it and it's a bit unfortunate that you haven't got what you wanted, you can go through an appeals process. So usually that has to be put in writing within 3 months of you receiving the rejected application. And what will happen is you can go to this thing called like a committee meeting, and you'll get probably about a minute or 2 minutes. I've done it before. I can't remember exactly how long it was. You basically get to make your case. And the reason you might want to do that is because you would feel like what they are saying, that their reasoning is, contravenes their planning regulations. So, you know, if they're saying you're blocking your neighbor's amenity, you're restricting somebody's rights of lights, but actually I have a rights of light document and here it says I'm not restricting it at all. So what exactly is your issue, basically? So you get to go and present your findings, and you get to almost combat them on their stage. And generally, if you make it to appeal and you have that conversation, it can reopen the entire conversation and change things in people's favor quite often. So don't see it as this big thing that if you've gone to appeal, if you've been rejected, that's the last line. Actually, sometimes it can help because it gives you a chance to explain your side of the story.
Okay. All right. Well, there's a lot of information there. It's more stuff I'm learning myself. But guys, I wanted to say, those of you who have jumped on the line, obviously many of you are just jumping on. So we've got Paris here today. She's an architect based in London, and she's helping to answer some questions, particularly around planning as well. So if you've got any of specific questions that you have, personal questions about your own projects or planning, please type them in the comment section. I'm just asking her a couple of general questions to get started, and then I'm going to look into some of the questions that you've got. So another question I have is, because this is actually applies to one of the same crazy job that we're doing at the moment, where it's so hard to explain what's happened, but essentially what the previous builders had started to build was different than what was approved on the plan. Mm-hmm. Right? So we've actually started to knock the whole extension down, because it had so many issues with it anyway, with building control, that we just decided to take it right back to the foundations and start again. Yeah. So we're now going to be digging some new foundations in the appropriate locations and stuff. So I think some of it actually went too far out from what was sort of allowed. So what sort of, I mean, so let's say you've got planning approval for this extension, 4x5 or something, 4 wide, 5 wide by 4 out. Let's say you got planning permission, and let's say someone builds beyond what they have been allowed to build, say what they've been approved to build. What could happen in that situation?
I mean, you definitely do not want to build beyond what you've been legally allowed to do in your planning, because what will happen is they will send throughout your build, at any time, they can send a planning inspectorate. It doesn't often happen on home builds. It's just something that they probably don't have a lot of time for, but technically they are allowed to come and inspect your build at any time. And if you have, for example, let's be honest, a lot of neighbors, they're not going to be happy if you're building slightly beyond, their line or something like that. So chances are someone will point out that, oh, sorry, that's, 300 mil beyond what you've agreed with the planners. And what they will do is, first they will send you letters of enforcement. So they will say you're not building, they'll come and inspect, and they'll send you a letter of enforcement and say you're not building within planning regulations. And eventually, if you don't do it, they themselves can come and enforce it. So they will send their own builders to literally come and tear your extension down, or they will fine you a lot of money to do that.
Oh, yeah, I think I saw a program about this where they actually... Yeah. The guy was going ongoing issue of this build that he built that was way outside of what the planning was he was allowed to do. And I remember seeing this on TV like a few years ago, where they literally came and knocked the house down.
Yeah, they literally will, and then they'll charge you for that pleasure. Yeah. So they'll take you to court afterwards and say, well, it cost us this amount to do that, so pay us our money. Kind of thing.
So. Yeah. Amazing. So guys, please be careful out there. Do not be cheeky and try to go beyond what it is that you've applied for, because you got to also remember, as Paris says, they could turn up, but also if they don't turn up, you could be a neighbor who snitches on you, and then now the neighbor could just make a general complaint about something that and they might come in to have a look at the complaint, and then now they've
Exactly.
come up with a totally different issue, you know. So please stay within the boundaries of your planning. So one question on ask, probably two more questions. One question I want to ask is about, is it certificates of lawfulness, or is
Yeah.
it certificate? Yeah, can you explain what that is, or what that means?
Sure. So I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but there's a thing called a certificate of lawful development, or a certificate of lawfulness, and essentially it validates your permitted development rights. So we all have permitted development rights. As I mentioned, if you're a homeowner, you have the right to build. It's part of the Town and County Planning Act from, I think, like 1997 or something, and it gave us all these rights to extend our home and enjoy our home. And what a certificate of lawful development does is just it certifies it, and it ratifies it, and it says that yes, you are planning to build this in line with your permitted development rights. So what you should really do if you are seeking a prior approval is, you know, put in for your permitted development or your prior approval, and then put in for your certificate of lawful development, including your prior approval that you should have already received by then. And all it does essentially is, if you're ever selling your home, you can, you know, turn around to your buyer and say, look, this, everything that we've done here is completely by the book, it's completely by planning, and it's another piece of paper that just shows, you know, that you have abided by the laws of the land, the local laws. Technically, it's not something you need, and you will get a lot of people, unless you're doing prior approval, as I said, which is a slightly different thing. If you're doing permitted development, technically it's something that you don't actually like legally need, but it is definitely recommended, because it will help, as I said, with like selling your property, or if somebody comes and has an issue with what you've built, you can say, well, look, I've already been to planning, and I have permission for this. Also,
Yeah,
it's decided in much faster than a regular planning permission. Usually they'll send you back within 5 weeks or so.
Okay, that's a good point that you made about when you're going to sell, because a lot of people don't take that into consideration. Like they do certain works. I remember there was somebody who was doing something, and he had sent me something that the builders were doing, and he asked me about it, and I told him about certain steps that he should have taken, that he needed to take, and he was sort of not really bothering to do it.
Yeah.
And I said to him, when you come to sell, it's going to be an issue. And he was sort of like, well, I'm not really going to sell it, sort of thing. I'm like, everybody's going to sell one day. Like, even if you don't sell, and maybe you pass it on to your kids, maybe one day they're going to sell, you know.
Yeah. Also,
And a lot of people
it's not
don't
actually a lot
consider
of
that.
money. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of people worry about the cost or the time that it's going to take. And as I said, they decide permitted development in a slightly shorter time than they do for full planning usually. And it actually, you know, it doesn't cost too much. And even as an architect, for something that's a permitted development, I'd probably charge a little less than if it was a full planning permission as well. So there's also design and build contractors that will, you know, happily put that in for you and just make it a really smooth, seamless process.
Okay, cool. Well, guys, we are going to get now into your questions. So I've asked my questions. That's enough for me. I've learned some stuff here. So we are
Before we
going
jump
to,
into
I'm
the
going to try and,
questions, can I say a couple things?
yeah, go for it.
So I just wanted to kind of point out that obviously Darren's kind of brought me on. He's not paying me to be here. It's all just good faith, free advice. So we are going to go into the questions, but obviously as we do move into the questions, they are probably quite specific to you. Where I haven't been hired as your architect, you haven't hired me as your professional. I'm just giving this advice to be helpful and be friendly, but please take the advice, go away, do your own research, hire a professional if you need to, and use it as a starting point more than an end point.
Amazing. So that's a disclaimer, guys. So basically, do not come back to Paris. Okay, sort it out yourself. Go pay your money and get somebody to give you guidance. But she's going to do her best to help you guys out. Right. So we got first question. I'm not sure if you can see this one, Paris, from Saeed.
Yep.
And it says, question about planners asking for side extension to be stepped in 1 meter from the front. Would
Yeah.
planners cry if I ended up stepping it in 800 to 900 mil or even 600 mil during the build? So similar question to what we've already addressed. Merton, conservative area.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, 1 meter is usually the maximum that they will allow, and then for every meter you go out further, you have to step it in a meter. So that's the maximum, which means if you build it less, they'll be happy. I did something really cool and funky on one of my recent clients' designs where I basically did it at a diagonal. And that kind of allowed us to maintain the stepped 1 meter to 1 meter, because obviously as you go on a kind of diagonal of a triangle, the more you go up, it's the exact same if you go in. So it was just a way around it. So she got to have like a nice clean line, and it's kind of a cool quirky edge to her building. Really difficult to do the roof of that one, but it was quite fun. So you can be really adventurous with this, and you don't have to just have a jagged edge. And if you want to make it less so that it looks nicer, feel free. Just don't go over 1 meter.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. I'm trying to look for the ones that are specific to planning. And right, so we've got one here to you from Glenn. I'm going to catch up with you other guys' questions as well. Okay, so I'm not ignoring you. I just want to deal with the planning ones while Paris is here. So we've got hi Paris, this is from Glenn. To put a window in the side of a house on the first floor, which overlooks a neighbor's garden under permitted development, I understand it has to be obscure with an opening at no less than 1.7 from finished floor level. What size can the opening be width-wise? Is there a limit? And also, above the obscure lower part, can the fan light be clear?
So to answer, good question. To answer your question, I do not specifically know of a limit with the width. However, bear in mind that the larger your window size is, the more heat you're going to lose. So there is generally a good calculation that you can do, which will calculate a thing called a U value. And that will tell you, if you have a window of a specific size, if you have walls of a specific size, what kind of heat you're retaining in the room. You don't want to make your windows too large. You want to make sure your window has a good thermal insulation, because otherwise you'll be losing too much heat. And if it's a new room, you actually have a minimum U value that you should be maintaining. So if you Google what the U value is for an existing, I'm guessing your property is an existing property, what your U value should be for an existing property, you should be able to kind of put in, what your window U value is, and you'll be able to kind of figure out, is my window too big? Again, similarly with your window, if it's letting in enough light. So there's also a calculation for that. So I think consider those two things. Double check your supplementary planning guidance in case in your borough it does have a specific width for your window. And then to answer the last part about, can the fan light be clear? I believe it can, but again, check your supplementary planning guidance, because I think it's just the lower part of your window that needs to be obscure to protect your neighbors from privacy, but you can have the top part clear to allow more light in. I hope that answers your question.
Oh, cool. And also, Glenn, I would say as well, some of the things to do with, like you're asking about the window and some of those things that will be under building regs as well.
Yeah.
So there may be some restrictions or some guidance that you will need to look on the building regs, as well as, permitted development or planning laws. Because obviously, if you're doing it under permitted, you might be a bit more flexible, but there'll be building regs to consider. Things like
so
fire.
The U value, for example, is a building reg more than
like a building regs thing,
planning
isn't it?
permission. Yeah.
Okay, cool. There's a last bit he's got here as well. I missed. Let's see. It says, and also, how close can that hole for that new window be to a wall that separates two bedrooms? So again, to me, that sounds a bit more like a building regs.
It's it's a constructability thing rather than a building regs. So for example, you're a builder and you know that if an opening's too close to a wall, it can make it quite different because there's nothing difficult, there's nothing for it to latch onto. When you're doing a wall closers and things, there's nowhere to like rest your lintel and all sorts of things. So you want to give enough space on either side of the window to just allow for constructability, essentially. You also want to think like, if you're using this room, do you want to put things on the walls? Is it going to be like, I don't know, are you going to have a TV stand or something next to it? So you don't want to put windows, you know, very, very close to the wall because you might need that extra 300 mil or something as well for other things.
Yeah, and for bedrooms, you might want to put a wardrobe on that wall, and then
You might want to put a wardrobe.
You got a window sticking out. It sort of blocks it off, doesn't it? So yeah, I guess you've got to plan it out properly of what you're going to use the space for. Okay, let's see. We've got next question is 60 seconds of Stevens asks, with the garden houses with no planning, how big are you able to go? Cheers, Joe. So I guess under the developments, what's the maximum size you can build them?
So under permit development, usually you're allowed to build up to 50% of the original land outside of the house. And what that means is if you already have an extension or sometimes even an outrigger, depending on what year your property was built, you can only build 50% of where the original backline of the house is. So if you've already taken up some of that land with like your outrigger or your extension, you can't include that new space in your 50%. So that building is already included in your 50%, should I say. So if you've got a 30 meter squared extension and you've got an 100 meter square garden, you've already used like 30% of your space that you can use for your garden. So you only have 20 square meters left essentially. So basically find out from your local if they have further restrictions, but generally it's 50% of the area of the original house, including all extensions and all work that's already been done. I hope that was clear.
Yeah, because a lot of people don't pay attention to that or not aware of it, because there's guidance as far as the physical size of the of an outbuilding, for instance, to not need building regs to do it or to not need planning. I think a figure for most areas, I think, is about 30 square meters maximum of the actual outbuilding. But that, even if you could get away with doing 30 square meters, it might be more than half of your garden.
Yep.
So some people think, well, it says here I can go up to 30 square meters without having planning. But if you go over the size of your garden, then you're also out of, having another issue to deal with. So there's more things you've got to take in consideration than just about, well, how big, this is how big I'm allowed to build it. A good point that Paris is saying is the overall garden. If you've got a massive garden, then you're a bit more lucky. Some people have very small gardens, especially in London. And as you said, if you've got an extension already, then you might be at your maximum capacity already.
And then another thing to consider, so the reason that they don't want you to build obviously just as many outhouses as you want in the back of your garden is something that Darren mentioned earlier, which was soak away. So you have to be able to clear water off of your land, otherwise everything's just going to flood. And if you pave over the entire thing and build buildings and dig concrete foundations, you're not going to have anywhere for the water to soak into. So actually it's not in your best interest to build as big an extension as you can have. And most gardens, if you live in London, we're not fortunate enough to have like lovely, massive sprawling gardens. Usually you have two fences along the sides, which form your party wall or your boundary. So essentially, the longer you make it, you're making it into more of a tunnel, which is why you'll find, like, if we're doing an extension, we'll try and put loads of roof lights or clerestory windows, which are the high level windows along the sides, just to try and get as much light penetrating into the center of your outhouse as you can.
Yeah, good point. We've got some more questions here. They're all coming in now. So we've got one from Ollie Cook is asking, If my front garden is road facing, but there is a lay-by between our property and the road, are we still restricted to 1 meter fence height without planning permission?
That is a very specific case that I have not come across before, so I cannot comment. The only thing that immediately jumps to my mind is that you have a lay-by between your property, which usually means you probably have an easement, or some sort of information about this lay-by in your lease or in your freeholder agreement. So I would actually start by checking there what you're allowed to do next to this. You might have like extra restrictions, should I say, which could be more of a legal thing, and then you probably have to start from there because you might need extra attention in order to kind of get around this. But with regards to the actual fencing height, I'm not sure.
Okay. Cool. Okay, so we've got some more questions. We've got Ellie Jake in here as well from Essex. Welcome, Ellie. We've got T as well. So T is asking a question. It's in 4 parts. I'm going to try and read it all out in one go. So it says, hi, I live in a Victorian terraced house that has a side return on the rear garden. We have a lean-to built out of timber in that side return, which is about 2.5 meters high. Can I knock it down and build a solid wall to the same height without planning? Meaning, can I build a solid wall 2.5 meters high to form the wall for my lean-to that would also serve as a fence between me and my neighbor? It's quite a lot there.
There's quite a lot. There's a couple of things to think about here. So you mentioned that your fence is kind of serving as a bit of a party wall at the moment. So you would probably need a party wall surveyor to come in and kind of look at that and make sure that you are building your party wall correctly. Check your land registry, make sure you're building it in the right place. So I'd also suggest getting a party wall surveyor on this. Other than that, as it's a side extension, if you're building a new side extension to replace an existing one that you don't have planning permission for, unfortunately, you do have to get planning permission for the new side extension. If you already had planning permission for the lean-to, I would double check with your planning, but you might be okay. So it actually depends on whether or not you already have planning for a side extension. Then they might just ask you to do a material amendment, which is basically stating that you're changing the materials of your existing planning permission, rather than going through the whole thing of getting like an entire new planning application done. So there's a few things to think of there: party wall, material amendment, or do you need full planning?
Okay, great. Okay. I've got a quick question. I went to see a client yesterday, or a potential client, and they've got a sort of maisonette. It's sort of there's a row of actually it could be is it a row? It might be a row of houses, and so there's her sort of house. There's an upstairs and a downstairs flat. So she's in the upstairs, there's a downstairs, and there's like a chimneys that run through the downstairs through the upstairs, sort of like a shared chimney, I guess. And she was asking about she essentially wants to like move the bathroom from one side, move it over there, not walls through, and all this stuff. And one of the things she wanted to do was move chimneys. What's the likelihood of moving a chimney in, say, like a maisonette where you've sort of like got flat downstairs and maybe you're upstairs? How difficult is it to do?
So that's actually really interesting, and I'm actually really, really glad that you asked that. It's something that I had in my notes for us to discuss, which is basically this thing called a license to alter. So this is another part of kind of the whole building process that a lot of people who want to extend their home don't know about. If you live in one of those old Victorian maisonettes or any kind of 1960s home where maybe there's like another flat or something above, essentially you're unlikely to be the freeholder of your property. You're more than likely going to be a leaseholder, or perhaps you share the freehold with somebody else. And in that instance, you need a thing called a license to alter. So if you want to change any part of the building that's not moving internal walls within your own property, and even actually if you are moving internal walls within your own property, if they're load bearing, you need a license to alter. And that's like a legal document between you and the freeholder that says that, yes, you have permission to alter or change your property. So that is what your client would need, is a license to alter to say that, yes, you can remove the chimneys in this position.
Okay. All right. That's good to know. So maybe I'll if she hasn't watched this, I'll tell her to definitely watch this video, and they give her a little bit of some direction to go. Okay, so let's see. We've got next questions. So we've got our RK. Welcome, RK. Just joined the stream. We've also got Zulu Delta. Welcome, another regular, I believe, from Kenya. So welcome on board. We have RB. RB has a question here. It says, my daughter, I'm sure you'll be able to answer this one. My daughter is about to study architecture for a degree in Northumbria Uni. Any advice for her?
Hi, RB, how are you? I'm so glad to hear that your daughter is about to study architecture. We need more architects. We need more female architects. So I love that. I would say stick at it. It's going to be a bumpy ride, as they say. There's a lot of information to learn. And at the end of the day, I think the skills that you do learn as an architect are so vast. Like, you learn about so many different topics and so many different areas. Just have a lot of fun and try and stick at it, because the skills you come out with are going to be really good. So yeah, just cheer her on, and when she's got her head stuck in those books, like, keep her going, bring her favorite food. And like, my mom did that a lot when I was studying, and it really helped keep me going. When it comes to specifics about her university, I would just say talk to her tutors a lot. Tell her to talk to her tutors a lot, because they have a wealth of knowledge. And the more time she spends with her tutors and her peers, she'll pick up a lot more than if she kind of like studies alone or tries to learn it all by herself. It's good if it's a very collaborative career, and the earlier you kind of learn that, the better.
Okay, great. There you go. And yeah, good luck to your daughter, Arby. Okay, so let's keep moving. So we got 50 Cal Vet. Howdy from Texas. Welcome, thank you. Let's see, we have 4 yen. Good evening, Darren and Paris. Oops, sorry, it just disappeared. Let me see if I can catch that back. The page is updating really quickly. You look tired. Yeah, no, I'm tired. Yeah, I'll take some rest after this. We've got Ian as well. Thank you, Ian. So Ian has a question, and his question is, how do you find out if your neighbor has built onto your property? Boundaries we're talking about, right?
Yeah, so you need to probably go to land registry. Land registry have all of the building property lines, and check your lease or your freehold agreement. And that should also show you what your boundary line is. And then you can dispute that with your neighbor if they have gone over that line.
Cool. And I think with the land registry, you can do that online, can't you? I think you can buy it and download it, and it shows you the boundaries, doesn't it? I think I've had done that for a client and helped her to do that. And I think you could literally just pay for it and download it or something like that. You can get it quite quickly anyway. So I think that's where you need to go. Okay, so we got Darren Kingsbury. Welcome. Evening, Darren in Paris. A question for Paris. Do architects generally place more emphasis on functional or aesthetics when designing a build? Function over design, look. What do you place more emphasis on?
Honestly, it's really personal to each architect. It's really personal to each designer on how they approach design. I'm quite a practical person. I understand that people need to live. People don't want to spend too much money. I'll try and make it as beautiful as possible, but within reason and taking into account your budget. But that's just me. some architects you're going to hire and they're going to say, well, no, you have to absolutely have this latest piece of technology for your roof or for your window or something like that. And fair dues to them. Like, I think it genuinely, I wish I could say one or the other, but it genuinely just depends which type of architect you have, and also what type of client you are, because some clients are quite risk averse and they want tried and tested and want exactly what it is. Some people are a bit more adventurous and they say, I want to try the latest gadgets that are out there and show me all the new stuff.
Yeah, but that's a good point as well, even about because I've had it before where, because I get tons and tons of drawings sent to me, because the first sort of thing I ask for people is send me your drawings, you want an extension, whatever. And I've had it quite a few times where I've gone over the drawings, I've given them a sort of estimate, maybe an idea of roughly what it would cost, and it's way over the budget that they had in their mind.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like there's so many things in here that are going to cost so much money for something you might see an extension's got 4 huge skylights in it, and I'm like, well, these are like $2,000 each or something like that, and they're just like, what? And I'm like, yeah, didn't you tell your architect what your budget was? Like, they're like, I'm 20 grand over my budget here, so I think that's an important thing, in that architects really paying attention to people's budgets, because it does happen where, so as you said, some architects maybe, I think that's maybe why the question is coming, because I think it's popped up a few people before where an architect has their own vision and they sort of like, they obviously they may have this for their portfolio and they want this amazing building, and of course you want an amazing building for your client, but sometimes your client can't afford that amazing building, and it's out of the scope of what they, it's not really in line with their pockets, shall I say.
There's definitely there's 3 things when you're designing a building. It's 4 things actually. So it's cost, quality, time, and risk. And it used to be a triangle with cost, quality, and time, but risk is also very important. So it's kind of more of like a square. But basically they say that you can have 2 but never 3 of a triangle. So you can have something that doesn't cost a lot, but it's going to take a lot of time to build, and the quality might not be so good. It really depends on what you want, and that's where the risk comes in. What you are willing to risk as a client. Are you willing to have high risk and spend a lot of money, and don't want it to be done on the fastest time, but also want it to be the best quality and the most amazing design? Then okay, cool, we can do that. But I would say be really upfront with how much money you have and your budget at the very beginning, and what risks you're willing to take as part of the design, and what risks you're not willing to take. Also, where you want your quality to go. If you're not super fussed about the bathroom finishes, but you really want this most amazing kitchen, then say that up front, because that's where we'll kind of focus our attention. So, understand the cost of your project, understand what exactly you're asking for and what you're getting for that money, and be very upfront about how much money you have. Like, don't wait to the end to say, well, actually, I don't really have this or that. Go in there with an amount in mind.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Be honest. And some people are scared to talk money. Even with me, sometimes I say to a client, like, "What's your budget?" Because I keep going back and forth with things, and I'm just like, well, I have no idea what your budget is. If you tell me what your budget is, then I can actually tailor something for you that you can afford. So it's definitely, be honest with your architects. At least if your architect, tell them exactly how much money you've got to spend. Right. So this is the point where I'm gonna have to start moving fast, because the questions are piling up. It always happens, and it's now 5 minutes to 9. Right. So next question is from DH, and they ask, I have planning permission for a 3-meter extension, sewers running under the new foundation, building control said to go 3.5, I guess, meters down, and not build on the sewer. Need to make new application now. Can it be refused?
I mean, it can always be refused. However, this is when, I don't know if you were listening earlier, if you were tuned in, but we talked about the appeals process. So chances are, if you go in there and you explain your situation, they'll probably understand. And if they don't understand the situation, you have to go to appeal. You have a good basis because you have it from the authority that they've recommended you go further. So I doubt it would be refused, but if it does, it's not the end of the world, and you should get to make your case.
Yeah, great. Okay, next one is Mega Man 2016. Hi, Paris. I have approved planning in a conservation area to change a sash window at the back into a timber frame door. Can building regulations override planning and insist on us having a UPVC door for better insulation?
UPVC is just one type of material that a door is made of. It doesn't have to be UPVC. There are timber doors that have just as good insulation. You can get insulated timber doors with solid cores. You can get aluminium, triple glazed. There are so many different materials. I would suggest really doing your research thoroughly and finding out, as I mentioned before, there's a thing called like U values, for example. There's all sorts of different information that you can get about doors, and you can use that as a comparison. And I would, again, just like really go hard on the research with that one, so you can choose the door that suits you the best. I'm sure many door companies would be happy to give you lots of very specific advice about the benefits of using one type of door over another.
Yeah, great. And with building control, building regs, it's all about the documentation. You know, if you can, as Paris said, I'm sure there's companies that can provide documentation that they meet a certain U value or a certain requirement. As long as you can prove that, then you should pretty much be okay.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got Syed. So Syed's come back. His question. Let's see. Okay, he said, I think the 1 meter was misunderstood. I mean 1 meter away from front building line of existing house. Maybe the word stepped in was wrong. Okay, so from what I think Syed is saying is they're building a side extension, and it's the planning have allowed him to build it 1 meter
back from the front.
Back in from the front.
Yeah.
So I think he was asking if they would have a problem if he was a bit closer.
In that case, then yes, they probably would.
Mil.
Yeah, they would. They have that amount for a reason. If you go beyond that, you have to go for full householder planning permission. You have to explain your reasoning. Why do you want it to be less? What characteristics does it change? What kind of benefit does it have to you for it to be less? Is it something perhaps you're making a future home for an elderly parent or something like that, and actually you need the space because you've got a wheelchair inside, or whatever the reasoning could be. So you would need full planning permission to change that amount.
Okay, great. I hope that that helps, Syed. So next one we have is Evo Laws Gaming asks, do I automatically lose permitted development rights by living in a conservation area?
No, you do not automatically lose permitted development rights, but you may have specific things in your conservation documents, conservation guidance, that you have to adhere to. And where you lose permitted development rights, it's a thing called an Article 4 direction or directive. And if you Google the Article 4 directives for your local conservation area, it will tell you which bits of the permitted development rights that you have lost. So have a look at that. If it says you have lost all your permitted development rights, then obviously in that case that you do, but chances are it might be a bit more specific than that rather than being general.
Great. Okay. So moving on, we've got Stephen. Welcome, Stephen, as well. Stephen says, nice lady. Thank you, Stephen.
Hi,
We
Stephen,
have
thank you.
We also got Glenn says, thanks for the answers, Paris. And Repair Shop has shared the live. Thank you. Mohammed Kafil says, hi, Paris. Can I use building regs before getting permission with permitted development rights?
So hi Mohammed, you can go straight in with your building regs for permitted development. As mentioned before, you don't technically need any planning permission to use your permitted development rights. However, as mentioned before, it is recommended that you go for your certificate of lawful development just to ratify, and it's better if you do that before you kind of start any building work, which is usually when you would go through all of the building regulation, building control, documentation at the same time. So yes, you can go straight into building control. I would recommend also doing your certificate of lawful development at the same time.
Cool. All right, so we're moving along to next one. So we got Assad as well. Assad Ali is asking, how much space must I leave between my garden fences when building a garden office, i.e. wood versus brick built?
Darren, I think this is actually more of a question for you because you're the one who has to get into the side of it and build things.
Yeah.
You know, I typically leave about 500, but you might be like, no, that's enough, or that's too much. Or you can go a bit less than that if you want.
Yeah, I think there are some guidances. I have a video. I'm not sure if that's covered in that, but I've got a video, some titled something to do with planning versus building regs of garden houses. I can't remember, where I've just collated some information that I've gathered myself. One of the things you need to consider with brick built versus timber, as far as proximity to fences, is if you, generally speaking, because funny enough, I had building control visit the cowboy build job this week, and we actually building a garden house at the back. So he saw the footings had been dug out. So he was asking about it, and he was saying, oh, it needs to be a meter away from the fence. And I said, well, it's not going to be built out of timber. It's being built out of block, which I think the rule is something around, as long as sort of 70% of the building is sort of non-combustible, then it can go right up to the fence, you know. But if it's sort of timber, it's supposed to be within a meter, obviously, for fire spread and stuff like that. So I think if you're building in, I mean, I see it everywhere. I see timber ones all up to the fences and everything. Everybody seems to just do whatever they want. But typically, if you're building in timber, you should bring it in a meter from the fences or the boundaries of your neighbors. If you're building from brick, you can actually build pretty much right up to it. But again, that's sort of general. You need to check. There are the resources are online, especially if you look under building regulations for outbuildings. If you look on building regulation for outbuildings, obviously if it's under permitted development, it should be fine. But that's me loosely answering that question for you. Yeah, okay. All right. So we got Ollie. Ollie says thank you, Paris, as well. We have JB2018 says, hi, Paris, with reference to garden houses, how much space is permitted? Oh, that's the same question. Sorry. Or is it the same question? Somebody asked us.
I think it's a different question, but the same question. Okay. Different person, but
the same fence. Fence is wooden, where the fence is wooden panels when the house is brick build or timber. It's pretty much the same answer for that question as well. So Darren Kingsbury says, an example of a more functional design is Darren's current timber frame extension build, which has steels in, which cause the ceiling levels to be all over the place. Yeah, I think everybody hates the design of this house. I mean, I don't like it, but I think as well, there's a lot of things. A lot of people have been asking me questions about that. There's a lot of things to take into consideration. One of them is obviously the structural elements of it is what the steels are able to do. You know, for instance, we have a main beam coming from sort of the front room down to the back of the house, towards the back, and it sits perpendicular on a large beam that spans the back of the house. It sits on top of it. So obviously the steel's at two different heights.
Yeah.
For it, and there's other steels coming off that first one. So there's a lot of load coming, ending up on the back steel. Now for the connection to have been in the same line, it can be problematic with the weight on the connections. So these are the things a structural engineer will take into consideration. But also, people made the option, which would have been a great idea, to sort of had the steels inside the ceiling. But the other issues that come up with that is the level of destruction that's required.
Mm-hmm.
For the way the house is designed and the way the joists are, we would have to destroy a lot of upstairs to make that happen.
Yeah.
Because one of the walls that's supporting upstairs, the size of the steels would take it past the ceiling anyway. We would be out of the floor upstairs. We would have to destroy the bathroom, which is tiled. We'd have to do destruction in the bedroom. There's so much more things that's taken into consideration when I guess someone's designing something. How much level of destruction do you want in your house? Are you going to be, if you want it hidden, then it means they're gonna have to smash upstairs and take all the floorboards up and everything. If you don't want to do that, then you're gonna have to settle with a secondary beam that's a bit lower, So I guess these are all things that you guys will take into account in designing, functionality over the look of it, All right, so let's see. We got Mega Man. Mega Man has donated to the channel. Thank you very much for the new tools fund. Thank you. We always need new tools. I need a new Milwaukee grinder because it died on me this week. So I need to go get a new one. Thank you for that donation. Much appreciated. We have got Ricky's question. Ricky asked, "Hi Paris, hoping to build a double-story side extension. Is it better to knock down the existing building," and he's got in brackets a garage, "before doing drawings and applying for PP, or show the existing planning permission, or show the existing? Should you knock the garage down first?"
So when you're doing your planning permission drawings, you will always draw the existing as it is. If you knock down the garage, I don't know that it helps you in any way to knock it down before. They wouldn't necessarily be like, oh, there's nothing there, so it's okay that you're building a double-story side extension, versus if you're converting a garage. So the existing doesn't necessarily, the use of the existing in this case doesn't make a difference to whether or not you're going to get your planning permission. So in that instance, I wouldn't recommend it because it's just going to be more hassle for you. You're going to have dust for an extended period of time when you could just do it all in one go. So it doesn't help anything when it comes to your planning permission, I don't think. I don't know if you had any other thoughts, Darren, maybe about process or anything.
No, I would say so. So I mean, existing is existing. They always get the drawings where we get the existing layout and the new layout, and I think it's taken for a given the new layout is going to supersede the existing. So if there's a garage there, I guess they assume that you're going to take the garage out anyway. So I would say you wouldn't necessarily need to do it in advance. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay, cool. Let's see. Give me 1 second. Okay, we've got last few more, and then I know there was a few more questions that some people had that I think were related to me. I'll try and see if I can answer those questions as well. Okay, so next question is JB again, who's asking, "Hi Paris, what's the maximum height permitted for a garden house with a GRP flat roof with 2 Velux flat roof windows, and where do you take the measure from when you have a slight slope to the garden?" So I guess the garden has a slope. Where do you take the maximum height measurement from?
So It's quite an interesting one. There is, depending on who does your site survey, there's different ways to calculate your zero, like your finish, there's like a finished floor level, then there's your ground level, and you have your slope level. Generally, I would kind of do the, looking at a slope, I would do the lower part of the slope as your ground level, just because if you kind of try and calculate from the higher part of your slope, what's going to happen is you're going to end up with, let's say, one side that's 3.5 high and one side that's 3 meters high. And then your planners basically going to come in and say, well, your building's 3.5 meters high, it's not 3 meters high. So I would kind of calculate it from the lowest part of your slope of where you start your building line, for your outhouse or your extension, whichever you're doing in that instance. In this case, it's your outhouse, I think, garden house. And then your maximum height is your maximum height at your eaves, which is usually 3 meters for a flat roof. So that includes your kind of your build up as well, which is usually about 30 centimeters or something like that. So your internal ceiling height is probably going to be about 2.3 meters once you take into account your floor build up and your roof build up. Maybe it might be a little bit less depending on how steep your slope is.
Okay, thank you. So we got another question here from, let's see, Mega Man's last question. He says, do architects design lighting and switch locations, or is it down to electricians?
Hi, Megan again. So we can. Depends on the scope that you agree with your architect at the very beginning. If they won't do it, they will tell you. And generally, they can consult with an electrician if you already have one appointed, so that they can get the best. Usually it's more kind of things like fuse boxes. If you're kind of rewiring an entire house or something like that, we might need to know. Generally, we can move around your switch positions and we can do your circuitry just to say we want. It actually helps as well. For example, if we're helping you design a kitchen or something like that, and you want to walk in and turn on one set of lights, and then you want to have another set of lights over your dining table and another set, underneath your counters, we need to know that. So yes, we can quite easily do your circuitry drawings.
Cool. I mean, when most of the time when I get drawings, they don't have any layouts for the services. Actually, when I did my apprenticeship, I did it as an electrical engineer, was what I was studying, and the company was a building services company. So we did electrical, mechanical, fire, all that sort of stuff, ventilation. And our CAD department actually did all of that overlaid onto the architectural drawings. It was mostly commercial stuff, but we designed all the cable routing and all that sort of stuff. But with residential,
we wouldn't go as far as doing like cable routing. I think that's very complex. But for lighting and switch locations, definitely it's something that you can do.
Yeah.
But again, include that in your scope, in your discussion with your architect from the beginning, because it's not something that you will definitely receive as standard.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So let's see. So we've got loads of thank yous. Evo, Mohammed, thank you. RB, thanks for the advice. Syed says, I think they're referring to a question before. You can simply show on the plans and mention proposed demolition of garage as part of your application. So I think that's referring to a question before. Ricky says, thank you. Mohammed is asking, what's the best way to get in touch with you, Paris?
What is the best way to get in touch with me? At the moment, I am not doing private work, simply because my day-to-day life is my 9 to 5 is killing me at the moment. Let's be honest, we've got to make that money. But I do have an Instagram. I don't know, I can't chat into like comment in the chat. But I don't know, maybe you can pop it underneath in the YouTube afterwards. But it's just Studio Aurei. Aurei is spelled Aurei. And if you follow me on there and keep up, I will eventually start posting on there soon. and I will check my DMs and things. So if you do want to kind of message me privately, that's fine.
Yeah, I will. When I get a chance, when we're done, I'll get it posted onto the video, so the comment section, your Instagram page, as well, and they can contact you there. So I think we have got to. Every time I say this, I think I get to the end, and that question pops up. All right, cool. Let's see. I think that might be a question for me. All right, I think we're gonna probably wrap up with Paris here and let her go. Thank you, Paris, for joining us today. I'm sure everyone really enjoyed today because there were so many questions, which I expect. This is how it's always like every week. And for once, I didn't have to just like answering questions. Someone else took that on their shoulders. So really appreciate you taking the time out and sharing the knowledge and helping the viewers and subscribers of the channel. So I hope you guys also appreciated Paris taking out the time today to help you guys out. I'm sure you did. So Paris, I'm gonna say thank you again. Also, I never mentioned as well, Paris is a fellow Dominican like me.
And
Yeah,
St. Lucian as well. I saw there was someone, I think it was Ricky, who's St. Lucian. So I'm Dominican St. Lucian.
That's right. Yeah, there you go. So yeah, she's a St. Lucian Dominican as well. But yeah, so Paris, thank you very much, and we will catch up soon.
Yeah,
And
it was honestly my pleasure. I'm really happy, and I hope everybody got the advice that they want. But I'm sure we could go on forever and ever and ever.
Lovely, amazing. Right, cool. Okay, I'm going to say bye, Paris, and
Bye.
I'm going to see if I can answer the last few of these questions. Okay, take care. All right, guys, so that was Paris, architect, who tried to help you guys out with your questions. It was amazing. I think she did really well. I learned a lot. There's a lot of stuff I did not know. I never knew. So I've learned a lot from the stream today, and I'm sure you guys have as well. And hopefully some of you guys will be helped with your own projects. I know there was a couple of other questions. I'm going to see if I can. I did say I didn't want to leave you hanging. I'm just going to quickly go through and see if I can catch up on any of them, if I can find them. And I will see if I can answer those, and then we sort of end it there. So one of the questions was riding on MT. If you're still here, the question is, my house has compressed straw panels instead of cavity wall. For the life of me, I can't find what wall fixings I should be using for shelving. Nothing seems to help. Any ideas, please? Compressed straw panels. Wow. I'll be honest, I have never seen these before. I've never dealt with them. I couldn't begin to tell you what fixings you could use for that. Sounds interesting. I mean, compressed straw panels. Wow, it doesn't sound like they can hold a lot of things. So unfortunately, I can't help you with that one. That seems quite a specialist thing there that I haven't come across. We got Jas is asking, hi Darren, did anyone at Milwaukee get back to you? Also, keep up the good work. No, nobody has. I thought I emailed you back today. I literally was meant to do it today. If I haven't, apologies. I will send you an email. Thank you for that email that you sent. And I did get it, but you were on my list of emails to reply to today. I feel like I did, but I'm not sure if I actually got to it. So thank you again, just for that. So we got Dean. Dean says, hello, Darren, mate. I've got 4x2 rafters eaves, which is about 800 mil. I got 50 mil insulation in there. Building control came around and said I need to put 100 mil insulation straight over the top. I'm stuck. Oh, wow. Okay, so you've got 50 mil insulation within the rafters, I'm assuming, but they want another 100 mil on top. So I guess eaves is 80 mil. Okay, I guess you have to put it over, or you can, or you need. To be honest, with insulation, it's not about the thickness of the insulation. That's not what it is. People say, oh, you need 150 mil in there, or you need 100 mil. It's not about them. It's not about the thickness of it. It's about the U value, as Paris mentioned earlier. You need to find, there are insulations that have different U values for the same thickness. So you might have one insulation 100 mil of, I don't know, Enotherm, or you might have Celotex, or Kingspan. Kingspans tends to get higher U values for the same thickness. They are sort of more specialist, more expensive insulations where you can get much higher U values for thinner sizes. So what you need to do is check the regs of what your U value you require for your roof, and look into finding maybe thinner insulations that will give you that U value, or makeups of insulation. Obviously, you've got the 50 mil in the rafters, and you need to add this, whatever it is, to get to your U value. Let's say it's 0.16. And as long as you can prove that to building control, which you can usually certify via the insulation manufacturer, that this will give a U value of XYZ, you can show that to building control and say, look, I've got an insulation that's 80 mil and it achieves the U value. So that might help you if you haven't got the space, or you're trying to not lose too much space. Seek alternative companies that will give you a better U value. All right, so I know there was a couple more. I'm just going to quickly look through. If I can't really find them, then we're going to wrap up here, because I think most of the questions really were for Paris. So I think I'm not really much more I've got to say. Let's see. We've got right at the bottom, we've got a couple of more questions. Let's see. Oh gosh, see, as soon as Paris jumped off, loads more questions are coming in. All right, so Foyan says, thank you both. Good night. Nice meeting you, Paris. And Brian's asking, do you work for yourself? Paris currently works for a firm. And Alex says, thank you, guys. Edith says, thank you, Paris. Excellent insights. Someone else says, don't forget to hit the like button, people. Great live. Thank you both. You're welcome. And yeah, smash the like button. Glenn also says, please press the like button. John Marshall says, thanks, both of you. Caroline is really useful. Didi says, thank you for your time, Paris. And David Richardson says, brilliant info and explanations from Paris. Enjoyed her input. Many thanks, Paris. Caroline is asking about the Grab company. No, we haven't got the Grab company yet in. We will be doing that soon. And Glenn said his house has got the straw panels as well. I've never come across these. Maybe I will sometime. Riding Empty says, thanks so much for coming back to me anyway. I hate my walls. Yeah, they sound fun, man. So let's see. And there's a couple of people who are giving you some ideas as well. Best way to deal with hairline cracks. Okay, this is going to be the last question. It depends. Well, firstly, you find out why the cracks are forming, if you can. There are a couple of ways. If it's just sort of like cosmetic, there are some good fillers that you can use for hairline cracks, actually. That sort of non-shrink sort of fillers and stuff. Some places where I've been in where they're just notoriously cracking everywhere, especially if we have to do a replaster. We have done it before where we've just meshed the entire wall with fiberglass meshing, similar to like what we use when we do the K-Rend and stuff. And that pretty much does really sort of guarantee that it's not going to crack back. Sometimes you cut into cracks and you fill it back and they come back. It really depends. Some walls and some the internals of some walls are just constantly moving and shrinking. So sometimes it keeps on coming back. If you can tape them with some sort of tape when you're filling, it helps. But you can get some really good fillers that are non-shrink. If you can get like a good non-shrink filler, use that. And that typically does help with most cases. Yeah. So last question for tonight. Mohammed is asking, do you take jobs in South Croydon? Yes, certainly we do. We cover all of South London. So that's it, guys, tonight. So, guys, thanks a lot for those of you who tuned in. Thanks for all the love. Thanks for the donations as well. And hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Until the next one, next week, Tuesday, I shall bid you farewell. Take care, and we shall speak soon.